You have only two choices. You can be free or you can feel safe. So I got the idea for this video because I was flipping through YouTube and I saw somebody who I've watched a few times who is an ex-CIA operative who is an expert in psyops. And so when I saw his video, now he phrased it a little differently. What he said was, you can be free or you can be safe. And he went on to say that being safe was obviously the wrong choice, that you are giving up your freedom in exchange for being safe. And being safe obviously means being accepted by the matrix, the powers that be. So I changed the wording because this is more accurate. You can either be free or you can feel safe, because that is what's being offered you. You are not being offered actual safety. You are being offered the temporary feeling of safety for right now, which means what? Even if you opt for the second option, you will always be in a state of trauma. And you will never truly find the safety that you think you're getting. So let's get into this and take a look at this on a deeper level. So, in a spiritual world, you can be both free and safe because your spirit defines you. So the base assumption that we actually come into this world with before we are programmed out of it, our base assumption is that our value, our lovability, comes from simply the fact that we exist, meaning that we are a spirit being. And spirit is the only thing that is true. The only thing that when you get past all of the manifestation, which is an illusion, all of it, even higher dimensional manifestations are illusions. When you get behind that, there is nothing but consciousness, which is spirit. So the only value that truly exists in the entire multiverse is spirit. And that is what you are. So your instincts tell you that you have value simply because you exist. But if you live in this third dimensional matrix world, you will be hypnotized and programmed, basically tortured, to accept that that isn't true, that your value, your lovability comes from being accepted by forces outside of you. So the safety that is being offered to you is not real. It is just a feeling. And we'll get into it and we'll find out it's not even a feeling that you can have for the rest of your life. It's only temporary. And as I said, the feeling of safety comes from actually being in a very destructive, threatening situation. You're in a state of trauma. So if you seek out being safe, you're really opting to be in a state of continuous traumatic fear. All right, so the greatest 3D lie is that you can compromise and have both freedom and safety. So I've been teaching for a long time people how to find your true career. And again, I've been teaching this from the beginning of my channel, which is the way that, and this is even before this whole light being experience and shifting realities, before any of that. What I was teaching was what I had discovered for myself, which was that if you come from the assumption that your soul is God, then the logical conclusion is that the physical reality must obey God. And the way that you know that you are following God's will is you listen to the joy of your deepest desires that come from your soul, not from your mind. And so what I have been sharing with people is that you must completely commit yourself to following the true desires of your soul. And then when you do that, the universe will treat you like God, meaning all of your resources will be met. And you will find fulfillment in life. I still believe that, but it's even more true now than ever. So when I work with people, I would tell people there are 3 worlds that you can live in. You can live in the real world, which is the 3D matrix, where in order to survive, you have to be accepted by the collective matrix, and you have to go and find a job and a career, and you have to make money, and you have to please your parents, and you have to please society. And if you do that, then you will be accepted and you will be part of the world, and you'll be okay. That's the real world. And nobody likes that world, because that is just an empty world. You're just a slave. You're working 40 hours a week doing a job you can't stand just so that you can eat and have a place to live. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to do that. We call that the grind. We call that the rat race. We call that, all kinds of names. Nobody wants that. So I tell people there's the real world. Then there is the second world, which is fantasy land. Now I call it fantasy land because at this point I'm appealing to people's understanding of reality, and I'm saying this is unreal. This isn't true. You can't accomplish this. This is only a child's fantasy. It's elves and fairies and things that don't really exist. Wink, wink. So I say in fantasy land there is no such thing as money. There is no need to work. There's no such thing as having a career. You do not need to get your parents' approval or society's approval. You are required in Fantasyland to do only one thing, and that is to play and have as much fun as you can possibly imagine. And in fantasy world, you can create anything. You can choose to be 100 feet tall with 10 heads. You can choose to be an angel, a fairy, the Hulk. You can choose to be anything that you want. And so those are the rules. You don't need money. You don't have to please anybody. You can be absolutely anything you can possibly imagine. And the only requirement is you must continuously do the one thing in that moment that gives you the greatest joy. And then I say, now, since this isn't real, it's just a fantasy, off the top of your head, if you could live in Fantasyland, what would you be doing? And the interesting thing is, they don't say, I want to be 100 feet tall with wings. They don't say that. People will then say something like, I want to live in nature and have a garden, and the only thing I want to do is tend my garden and play my flute and walk in the woods. And it could be simple as that. That's about as far off into Fantasyland as people go. And I'll say, you're sure? You can be anything you can possibly imagine, and they will always come back to something like that. And then I'll say, okay, so here's the third world you can live in. You can live in compromise land. Now in compromise land, you can have a job and have a career and also do the things that you want to do in your spare time. And then I say, now, of all of these three worlds, which one do you want to live in? They almost always choose compromise land. And they'll say things like, I've always thought about maybe going into IT, for example, because, I kind of like computers and I like that idea. And then they'll say things like, so I don't mind that. I can tolerate that. But then on the weekends, with the money that I make in IT or on vacation, I'll go off and have maybe a cabin in the woods and play during the weekend. And they'll go, I think that would be, and they'll start thanking me. Thank you so much. That works. And I'll say, okay, here's the problem. Compromised land doesn't exist. Compromised land is a suburb of the real world. And then I tell them the truth, because most of the time these people are young people, so they're just getting into this reality, and they've been told by their parents, just like my parents told me when I said I wanted to become an actor. They said, well, you should have a backup plan, and you should have a degree. And, so I ended up spending a total of 8 years in college getting the equivalent of a master's degree. And I got a bachelor's in theater, which was the most worthless piece of paper that anybody could ever get. And I did that because I was supposed to have that. I was supposed to have a backup plan. And I've known people, I still know people, and I remember them back in college days. And my dad even told me about one of his friends, and he tried to use this as an example. My dad was a physicist. And he said he knew this guy that he went to Caltech with, who then, after he got his degree in physics, decided that he was going to become a truck driver because he wanted to spend all day thinking about chess moves. And I thought, that sounds, that guy's doing what he wants. He's he's driving down the road thinking about chess moves. He's getting paid to do that. So that guy's actually living his dream. But he has the degree. He has the backup plan. And so people will say that, like I said, they'll do a job they can't, that they can tolerate, and then they'll live their truth, in their spare time. And then they'll create a fantasy that sounds reasonable. And as time goes on, I'll invest that money. I'll save it up. And maybe after 5 or 10 years, then I can take the money I've saved and I can go and do that. And so after I've explained to them that they've just created compromised land and that compromised land is just a suburb of the real world, I then tell them the truth. Because I've been around long enough to see this. Everybody that I know that has tried to live in compromised land never escapes. It is the worst option. They live in compromised land and I'm going to spend 5 years. In 5 years, I'll have saved enough money. 5 years comes and goes. They're still in the job they can't stand, except now they're wearing a brace because they have carpal tunnel syndrome, because they're typing on a computer, because they hate their job, so their body's rebelling and giving them pains, phantom pains that don't come from any actual real injuries. And then another 5 years goes by. I'll give you, when I was in my 20s, when I was, doing that, I had a theater company in Hollywood, and I was acting and auditioning, and I had a sales job. Back then, when we actually had phone sales where you had landlines and you called people on, I did that throughout my, my acting career to pay the bills. And I remember there was this guy who had to have been 45 or 50 years old. And you would hear him. He had a really great speaking voice, and he was very good at sales. And I'm going to back up because I don't want you. It was such a toxic thing to hear. And then when he would hang up the phone after not making a sale, he would make this sound. Every time. And you hear the sound, but if you could feel the frustration and the pain and the anger that would come out of him. And I looked at him and I thought, man, I do not want to be that guy. I was in my late 20s. He was already a middle-aged man, and he was so miserable. And he was clearly, the amount of money that he was making at that sales job. It's okay when you're 25 years old and you live in a studio apartment and you're out there all day acting or studying or whatever. You can tolerate that. But when you're a middle-aged guy and you're looking towards getting old and you're getting gray, and you still are doing a job you can't stand simply so that you can pay to be able to survive in a studio apartment. I said, that's what you're waiting for. That's what's waiting for you in compromised land. Don't believe me? Go ahead and do it. Talk to me in 5 years. Talk to me in 10 years. So everybody is seeking a compromise, and the greatest lie of the matrix is that you can achieve that compromise. And it is a gaslighting, lie, it is sleight of hand, it is BS, it is nonsense to bring you into the 3D matrix enslavement prison, all the while you think you're in control and you're working towards your freedom. And all you're doing is you're selling your soul. So you can't sell your soul and then be free. You are investing. When you invest in your soul, you will reap from your soul. When you invest in enslavement, you will get more enslavement. All right, so the 3D collective will focus on seducing you into devoting everything to the compromise. The promise of safety that you get is a lie. The feeling is temporary and can be revoked. So again, you have two choices. You can be free or you can feel safe. The lie, the seduction of safety, is a lie because the truth is that safety can be revoked at any time. It's not permanent. When you go and sacrifice your soul to get that degree and work that job and do those things you don't want to do so that later on in your spare time or in your retirement you can do what it is you really want. When you are living that lie, even when, let's say you do choose a career that brings you a lot of money, you will then become more and more paranoid of losing it. And that will become its own prison. I'll give you another story. I knew a guy in college, and he was a musician. And we were good friends for a while, and he was all about playing rock and roll music. We lost touch. I saw him again probably right around when I turned 50, so about 10 years ago. So that's, a good 25 years later, right? So I run into him and I tell him where I'm at. I had just gotten out of a bad divorce. I had been trying to do the compromise thing in my own way, and I was now broke, and I was, barely surviving. But I said, my entire focus is on living the surfing beach lifestyle, and I'm writing books, and I'm seeking to teach what I know to be true, and I'm not going to do anything else. But I was complaining about how broke I was. And he looked at me and he said, I envy you. I said, what are you talking about? You have two houses. You have a house in the mountains. You have this amazing job, and you make all this money. And he says, yeah, but I'm a slave to it. And I said, so then why don't you just quit? He says, I want to go back and I want to make music again. I said, why don't you just quit, sell your house, and live on that and make music? And he says, I can't. He says, I'm addicted to the money. I can't do it. He was living with a woman that he didn't want to marry, and she was pushing him to marry her, and he didn't want to do that. He was constantly fighting with her about that. And then not long after, maybe a year after, I contact him, and he said he had a brain aneurysm. And it gave him like a mini stroke, and now he was unable to work. And he was forced to move in with the girlfriend he didn't want to marry, with her and her kids that he didn't want to take care of. And he had to then she had to take care of him. He was miserable. He then started going crazy, and he ended up, getting a bunch of guns and like barricading himself in his house because he thought, the powers that be were going to come get him. I mean, he completely lost it. And I never forgot that. That's what's waiting for you if you look for the feeling of safety. It may not happen exactly that way, but the essence of it is going to be the same. All right, so the promise of safety is a lie. The feeling is temporary and can be revoked at any time. Achieving the feeling of safety will create severe cognitive dissonance. Let's talk about that word cognitive dissonance. It's one of my favorite phrases. Cognitive dissonance dissonance means it's, things aren't lining up, and cognitive means thinking. And what it means is that you lie to yourself, you tell yourself you believe a lie. For instance, something real simple could be if you're married to somebody that is cheating on you and you don't want that, and you tell yourself, yeah, they're cheating on me, but it's because they love me. Or they tell you that, I'm cheating on you because I love you. I have to cheat with these other people in order to keep the marriage interesting. It's because I love you so much that I'm doing it. And so you buy into it. Your absolute need and fear of being alone becomes so overwhelming that you buy into the cognitive dissonance of, on the one hand, you're being cheated on and devalued against your values, and at the same time you make excuses for it and you tell yourself it's okay, I'm so lucky, it's because they love me so much. You're constantly trying to make it fit two things that don't exist, putting a square peg in a round hole, and it's based on your desperate need to be accepted and loved. So this is one form of cognitive dissonance. Another cognitive dissonance is you've been taken captive by the Taliban and they've got a gun to your head, and but they tell you, as long as you do what we say, you'll be okay. And then you start to tell yourself that everything's okay. It's going to be all right. Yeah, no, I'm now part of this terror organization, but you know what? I got a place to sleep, and they like me. It's all going to be okay. So cognitive dissonance is a state of trauma, severe trauma. It's when something unacceptable that you cannot even allow yourself to fully look at it and experience it. It is so unacceptable to you, but the need to be safe overrides that, and you gaslight yourself into believing anything in order just to feel safe. This is the safety that is being offered to you by the 3D enslavement matrix. So achieving the feeling of safety will create cognitive dissonance, severe cognitive dissonance, and that cognitive dissonance will not go away. What you tell yourself is, it'll get better. I'll get used to it. I can handle it. But you never do. It gets worse and worse and worse over time. And the abuse always gets worse. So the bar keeps getting higher. Well, just sell your soul a little bit and we'll give you the ability to make money. You'll be safe. Oh yeah, that was last week. This week, you have to sell yourself a little bit more, but that's okay. This is the last one. It won't be any more. Just get 3 more of these and you'll be okay. You got nothing to worry about. Just listen. You want to be able to see your parents. You want to be able to buy food. You want to be able to travel. Then you better do what we're telling you. And this is it. This is the last one. So the feeling safe will never satisfy you and will create an addiction to seek more safety. So even if it wasn't constantly escalating, which it will be, even if it wasn't constantly escalating, what ends up happening is that you're never satisfied. The money will never give you satisfaction. You thought, if I just have enough money, I'll be safe. I'll feel okay. It'll all be okay if I just have enough money. You get enough money, and then you start worrying about taxes. And then you start worrying about, maybe I need a better this. And the emptiness that still exists after you get what it is you think you want. People who seek fame experience this more than anybody. You can talk to people who, they sacrifice everything to get fame, to become, the biggest star in the world. And when they get there, it is the loneliest place to be. Don't believe me? Go talk to Johnny Depp. Go talk to me about how happy Johnny Depp is and how many true friends he has around him and how many wonderful relationships he has. Go talk to Michael Jackson. Resurrect him. And while his last moments on earth, I remember I was alive when it was happening, and he was his doctor was giving him the most powerful drugs possible because his addiction had gotten to such a level he had to have a doctor infuse it intravenously into him because he just couldn't, no matter how famous he got, no matter how rich he got, no matter how popular and respected he got, it never gave him fulfillment. So if you achieve what it is that you think you want from the matrix, it will be so empty you will become addicted and you will seek more and more and more. And that's the best case scenario. You must choose between the approval of the collective or experiencing your own soul. And that's what this is all about. Safety, there's a price to the feeling of safety, which is meeting the temporary requirements of the collective. People talk about in spiritual circles about being part of the collective. That is why I have such a negative response to it, because spirituality is not about being part of any collective. Spirituality is about the awakening of your individuality. It is an individual process. Even if we come together as a group, those of us who are doing the interdimensional meditation and working with light beings, and that's how they work with you, even then we are all doing our own individual development. It has nothing to do with being part of a group or being approved by the group or being part of the collective. So I encourage you to get out of that mindset. It has infiltrated spirituality where now, the love and light crowd they seek to get each other's approval. They seek to find out what is accepted. Even if you listen to the so-called channelers, they're just simply repeating whatever it is that is the popular belief of the day. And they'll even mention, being part of the collective. They do it all the time. It is exactly what the 3D matrix wants you to believe. So you can choose to be part of the collective and be accepted, or you can choose to have a solitary, individual experience with the infinite multiverse. Those are your two choices. The safety and promise of the 3D collective is a Ponzi scheme. Everybody loses. Society is a Ponzi scheme. There's nothing about it that isn't a Ponzi scheme. I'm not going to go into describing a Ponzi scheme. Go look it up. Look it up and then look at society. Look at taxes. Look at careers. This whole thing, there's a thing that we call, that's introduced into the scheme, and it's called inflation. Inflation doesn't exist because money doesn't exist. Who do you think, the Fed, who decides what's inflation and decides what interest rates are, makes all these decisions on what? Something that doesn't exist. The economy, like the weather. It doesn't exist. It's made up. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a shell game. It's constantly being moved around. It doesn't exist. It's not real. To give your life over to that is self-devaluing. It's unaliving yourself. And it literally rots your ability to have critical thinking. It ruins your ability to interact consciously with the world. It destroys your ability to see the difference between truth and lies. Why do you think nobody in this world right now is even talking about the true UFO disclosure? Dr. Stephen Greer on his website has receipts. There's over 750 actual whistleblowers. Are any of them being interviewed by Congress or by the media? Even, podcasters, Joe Rogan and others. How come they're not talking to Stephen Greer every week and talking to his whistleblowers every week? They might interview him once or twice, and then they interview the idiots that want to tell you that, the David Icke nonsense. Why do you think people are gravitating towards that? Because people are addicted to the Ponzi scheme. They're addicted to the promise of being accepted by the group. They are denying their ability to critically think has been severely damaged. This is where humans are at right now. Okay, so the freedom of your soul is eternal and need only be accepted. So unlike the Ponzi scheme where you have to continuously meet higher thresholds to gain approval, pay more taxes, give more of your soul away, work more hours, get more of the things that you're asked to get in order to be accepted. Well, that keeps going up. Your value is based on what you do, who you are, money-wise, how much money you have, how sexy you are, how famous you are. That's where you get your approval from in the side of this equation where you seek the feeling of safety. But your soul, the approval, the fulfillment comes from merely accepting the existence of it, accepting your true spiritual identity. Now you have to operate from that. You have to act from that. It's more than just an intellectual thing. Again, the love and light crowd will just tell you that just accept that you're a beautiful, and they want to get lost in positive affirmations, and they think, well, as long as I'm, thinking that I'm happy, I'm happy. You have to act in accordance with that. Your soul will tell you things that you don't want to do. Your soul will tell you to create some piece of art, start your own spiritual business, to go off and live in the mountains. It'll tell you to do something that will be very frightening and will be contrary to your desire to be accepted. It will work against that. So you're going to have to choose. At some point, if you do this, there's going to come a choice when you're going to have to choose between sacrificing everything on the third dimensional level in order to achieve your soul, or you're going to have to walk away from that and do what you're being told. And I'm telling you now, it's going to get harder and harder. If you're walking a spiritual path and you try to live according to the matrix safety lie, you will be unable to. I'm working with people, they're trying to do that, they're trying to compromise, and they're not able to accomplish anything. And the moment they turn towards doing the difficult thing, the thing that's not acceptable, all of a sudden you see happiness and you see prosperity coming to them. You have to listen to your soul. Your soul more than ever. When I was a kid, you had a choice. You could choose between your soul, or you could fall back and, die a slow but tolerable death. You can't live like that anymore. You have two choices. You're either going towards your soul or you're going towards hell. Those are the only two choices you have. The fastest way to deprogram your 3D survival instinct is interdimensional meditation in CE5. I don't know any other faster way to do it. The spiritual practices that we do here at thunderwizard.com, the energy practices, the meditative practices, the qigong and all that will allow your body's nervous system to tolerate the intensity of the higher dimensional energy. By the way, that's what yoga was always meant to be. What yoga is now, it's a bunch of stretching, it's a bunch of soccer moms stretching. They think that's yoga. That's not yoga. The Hatha Yoga, which is the physical stretching, was the precursor to the meditation. And people did the Hatha Yoga to get their energy meridians strong enough to handle the high-level meditations. It was never about the stretching. It was always about the meditations, about the energy. So the practices that we do, the Qigong, which is the most powerful energy practices there are on this planet. I combine Kundalini Yoga, Qigong, and the Shin, which is the really high dimensional energy practice. Those things will allow you to physically be able to handle the higher dimensional energies when they come to you. But the actual, so they work together. But the point of that is to be able to do the interdimensional communication, interacting with higher dimensional beings. That is the fastest way to grow. And you will see, the more deeply you communicate with these beings, the faster you will be confronted with choosing between either your soul or the matrix. And people will become frightened and they will choose the matrix. I've seen it. People who I thought were really moving towards it have turned around and run the other direction. So this is, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. We all have to do this. But this is the path in front of us. And lastly, having a 5D community is essential for creating a new consensus of reality. So this is what I'm trying to create. And hopefully, this is what I'm trying to do with things like the ET Channeling Interdimensional Communication Zoom group. That is designed so that people who are doing these meditations and interacting with light beings can come together and we create a new 5D consensus, a new 5D vibration. If you're doing it by yourself, it's going to be challenging because there won't be anybody around you to reflect back the reality that you're experiencing, and they're going to try and talk you out of it. They're very likely going to be stimulated by your frequency. I've had people tell me, and students of mine have gotten the same thing. I don't like your frequency, they say. And I understand. They want to stay in a lower frequency of being part of the 3D acceptance matrix, or you're going against that. And that, again, people believe that their safety, they believe that their safety is attached to being part of the narrative, being part of the 3D matrix collective. And when you go against that, it reminds them that they're individuals in an infinite universe, and that is frightening. People don't want to be frightened. They also don't want to take the risk of being ostracized by the people they believe are giving them their safety. So it's beneficial to have a community of people who are going in the same direction. So I'm looking for ways to do that. I'm happy to create groups during the day so that people from other parts of the world can come together. I'm happy to investigate that, but I have to see that there is a desire for it. So, but I plan on doing that. I really look forward to the day when I can go to my 5D world, when I can physically be there, and all of you can come and the things that we'll be able to accomplish as a group there will be unbelievable. But we have to think about how to change the frequency down here. So we're working on that, and the light beings, the extraterrestrials, are starting to chime in and tell us more and more. So keep tuned to this channel, because there's going to be some more revelations coming from other galactic civilizations who want to tell us their history and their connection to Earth and their connection to us. And when we see that, it's going to revolutionize everything we think we know about ourselves and about our planet and about our universe. All right, with that being said, I've talked myself out. Just to know, I've uploaded the 5th video of the Galactic Contact 10-step practical video course, where we learn how to communicate with and channel higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings. And you can find that at contact.thunderwizard.com. I've also created a new service. This is the Thulian Starseed of Ascension Astrology, where you can find at thulian.thunderwizard.com, and that is where I do Vedic astrology specifically focused on your soul path, but it doesn't stop there. Light beings come and I channel them. They will talk specifically to you about your past lives, your dharma, your true soul path. I'm really looking forward to that. So if you're interested in that, go to thulian.thunderwizard.com. Yeah, beyond the bounds of the known world. All right. So we've got, anything else that I want to talk about? Yeah, anything else? I've got channeling. I'm still doing that, which you can find at channel.thunderwizard.com. I tell you to go to Thunderwizard and subscribe. When you go there, you're going to see this page. You see at the bottom, that is the menu. You will click on membership, and when you do, you will see all the various membership options of working with me. And if you go and click on shop, you will see all of the practices that you can purchase, one-time practices, sometimes very cheap, $10 to learn things like the Awakening the Immortals. So make use of all that stuff. It is all here for one purpose, which is to help you achieve your highest dimensional truth about yourself. All right, I love you all. Please be very good to yourselves. I will see you all very, very soon.